You tuned in to the Soulful Conversations Podcast, featuring a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of courage, hope, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin.
Welcome to the Soulful Conversations. We are here today to talk about love and signs from the universe. Our guests today are Reginald Lewis and Kurt Powers. I'm going to let them, they both have impressive resumes. I am blessed to have them as friends. I'm going to let them tell a little bit about themselves. And then Stephanie and Katie, if you guys want to chime in and say whatever you want to open, and then we'll start the conversation. Kurt, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, thank you for that introduction of saying I have an impressive resume, because when you asked me for my bio and my headshot, I was like, I don't even have one of those yet. So I kind of, when I do things, I never think about me like, oh, I need to promote this or promote that. And so I'm always more concerned about my guests and promoting what they do. I've been a personal trainer and own my own personal training business for over 35 years now, and I'm a hypnotherapist for probably close to 20 years now, and I'm about finished with my mastermind of called Love Only You Can Give, which is about loving yourself. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, I do my show called The Powers Project, which I started a couple of years ago, which I absolutely love. I'm one of those people who believe that you can be and do whatever you want at any age. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. And we have the young kids out there showing us that's true. So I want to be one of the old guys out there showing that's true. So there you go.
Oh, thank you, Kurt. I've been on your show. I've watched your show. I love who you show up in the world to be. You are one of those reminders that you can have a difference of opinion with somebody, but still, have a nice conversation and have a dialogue and come to, a common ground. And I think that that's one of the things the world's missing right now is that common ground.
Well, thank you. Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you, Kurt. Reggie, I haven't got to see Reggie in years. I am so thrilled to be able to see his handsome face.
I'm glad I'm here. I'm excited that I'm here. I'm glad that you thought of me to kind of join this panel, because I think it's a very important topic. And as you already introduced me, Reginald Lewis. My name is Reginald Lewis. I'm a professional psychic medium, a spiritual counselor, a life coach. I've been doing my work over 10 years. Which is kind of crazy to think about. And that's what I pretty much do. I help uplift people. I counsel, spiritual counseling, bereavement, deal with people that grieve, connecting with people, loved ones. I have quite an interesting type of work. So yeah.
I'm so thrilled. I'm always thrilled to have any conversations with any one of you at any point, because they're always uplifting. They always teach me something, and they always leave me feeling inspired and motivated. So I'm thrilled to have you all here today. As Kurt had mentioned, he's working on a course called about self-love. And I believe love is the reason that we even exist. And, and I also believe that love is that one thing that we get to take to the next world with us. It's the thing that doesn't die. It doesn't go away. Our physical bodies might not be here, but that love is still there. And if we are listening and we're open to it, we get signs all the time. Signs from God, signs from the universe, signs from our spirit guides, angels, our loved ones who have crossed over. I've had these experiences myself. So many that were so powerful that you couldn't explain it away as just, oh, well, that was just a coincidence. So I wanted to talk a little bit about love, and how when we're open to seeing the signs, how they show up, how we can recognize them, and how that like can help us in our lives moving forward. So Stephanie, I'm going to start with you because your book just came out, and your book is very personal about your story with your son and the loss of him. Can you share a few of the signs that you have received of, that convince you that love cord still exists?
Yes, most definitely. And like you said, Dawn, the love never dies. When we lose someone, it doesn't mean that our love ever died. Our love continues on. And so in the midst of that, then we start looking for signs from our loved ones. And, my son passed away 10 years ago. And automatically, first off the bat, I started getting the signs from touching my hair to different little feelings that would come along with a red bird showing up, right on the days that I needed the most, a butterfly landing on my hand, the most huge butterfly you've ever seen, just come and landed on my hand. A song will come on the radio. Someone will pass by that looks like my son. And just showing, this is my book, Suicide Through a Mother's Eyes. And I do talk about, more in detail about a lot of the signs that I've gotten from him, from God, from my angels, right after his passing. So I just want to say, a lot of people get upset and they say, I don't get signs. How do you get signs? You just have to be open to it. Just be open to it and listen to your intuition and just listen, because signs are always all around us. Even if it's an animal, but if you see an animal out of the blue, look that up and see what that means, because there's usually a meaning behind it. And me and Dawn do this all the time. We're like, oh, I've seen a woodpecker. Let's look that up and see what that means. And it's really close to the heart, how it resonates mostly every time. So I just say, just stay open to the signs because they're all around us.
Absolutely. Katie, did you want to chime in there? And then I know Reggie and Kurt, I can't wait to hear what you both have to say.
Yeah, I think it's a topic we have before gone on for hours and hours about, is about these signs. And just like Stephanie was saying, I've also lost my son. He passed away 8 years ago now. And the big part for me was, like say when that butterfly had the same thing landed on me, I just started thinking of my son. And so that's how I just was like, well, maybe it's not a sign, maybe I'm imagining this. But then I started thinking, well, why would I think that? Why would something within me be telling me this specifically about this thing, whether that, was the butterfly, whether it was a color. And one of the beautiful signs that Dawn and I actually shared together. So my son was all about rainbows. That was his personality. That's what he kind of shone on this world. And he was very much related as a rainbow. And Dawn and I were together in her kitchen, and there's basically nowhere where light in that space can hit anything to reflect. And there was this big, huge rainbow on her refrigerator. And we were both standing there looking at it like, you see that, right? Like, wow, look at this. And we'd been talking about these sorts of things and had been talking about my son. And then all of a sudden this shows up in a place that just couldn't even happen. And then a couple of days ago, she sent me a photo on the ground of almost the identical rainbow that we saw together. And again, that's both what we thought of. And I came back to that thing in that moment of, if I think it straight away, then something's telling me that that's what it is, and that I'm not crazy, that it is this connection. Because I think a lot of us do think that we're crazy, that it could be a sign, that we're making it up, it's not real, this isn't right. But if you're thinking it and it's coming to you, then that's what it is. And the more and more you tune into that and believe that, the more and more it happens through everything. And like Stephanie shared, you see a rainbow, you see those numbers reappearing, you search them up, you look at them, and then you get chills at the incredible divine alignment with what's happening in your life at that moment, to what that means. And the more you get connected, the more exciting it becomes, and the more you feel this external love from others guiding you from not where we are, which is super powerful. And just the last part of that, I think Dawn, you mentioned about we leave with love. You know, I've experienced seeing my son be born, and I've experienced seeing my son die. And the thing that was common in both was the amount of beauty and love in both. You know, sure, it was very hard seeing him go, but it was the same divine love that I saw him go.
Oh, I got chills, Katie.
Me too. All over, all over.
Yep.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. I don't even know if we can speak for a little bit. Reggie or Kurt, do either of you want to chime in on that?
Well, yeah. I want to say, Stephanie and Katie, thank you for sharing that. It's very heartwarming, and it definitely touches something. It strikes something in your heart, you know, as you both were just sharing that. You know, you can feel the love as you're talking about it. You can feel that love, you know. And Katie, you hit on something. It's almost like you reading my mind. I would say we come from love and we go back to love. That is truly my belief. You know, as a psychic medium, as someone who's just very spiritual, I believe in a higher power, whether you call it God, source, whatever you tend to call it. I believe that higher power is love. That is my belief. You know, so I believe that we are created in love, no matter the circumstances or the situations that we are born in physically. I believe that our true essence is love, you know, and I believe that's what we return back to once we leave these physical bodies and leave this physical plane. So as a psychic medium and doing this work over 10 years, we're speaking to thousands of people, you know, I've encountered, you know, I've had personal situations and of course, working with my clients. And for me, I could definitely relate to, you know, losing my grandmother. She was the closest person that I lost, my maternal grandmother. And when that happened, for me, it was very much so, it hit home. I've had other people that passed in my family, but this is the closest, you know, because me and my grandmother, we were like two peas in a pot. We were like spiritually like soulmates, you know, and she was the only person I felt on this earth plane that could ground me spiritually, you know. And so when she left and I wasn't present to be here at the time when she passed and she was in the hospital, you know, I didn't want, I was in New Orleans at the time. She's back in Cleveland, Ohio. And I didn't want to come back immediately because I just didn't know how I was going to react. I just didn't know how, because she was so full of life and so full of energy. I didn't know how I was going to react coming back to seeing her lifeless. I just couldn't imagine that, you know. And this is the part that opened up my mind and really hit me on the power of the spirit, the soul, is when I had to go back and view her body. I went and I saw her body, and I literally had no association with the body. I didn't even reckon, it was like, that's not my grandmother. Like I had no connection to the body at all. And it wasn't that I was numb with emotions or feelings. It's just, I knew she wasn't there. Her spirit wasn't in there. It was literally just that, a shell. And that's when it really hit me of the power of the soul. Like the connection that we had was a spiritual connection. It was a soul connection. It was the love that we shared. All that was just a vessel. She wasn't in that vessel anymore. So I felt that she was truly her true self, and that she could truly be present with me in a way that I felt that she was always there, but in a bigger way. And so every day I feel my grandmother's presence, and I get signs, and other people bring her up that I don't even know. Other people are sensitive, or mediums always bring her up. And she's a very strong, I feel like, guiding figure in my life.
I love that. I can connect with that in so many ways. And it's like you just said that I was reading your mind. You were just pulling a lot of out from what I had too. And just to tap on that a little bit, when my son passed away, his younger brother was 1.5 at the time, and it was at home. And he came into the room, and he'd been at home all weekend, and you know, sort of before he passed away. But he came in the room on the day that he was almost gone and said to me, "Mummy, where's Jackson?" And like, he was right there. And I couldn't tell him that he was right there, because he knew within his spirit, I can't feel my brother. My brother's not there. I don't know who this is in his bed. And he was not even 2. And he kept repeating it over and over. I didn't know what to say to him at that moment, because I didn't want to lie to him and be like, "No, that is Jackson." because he knew 100% it wasn't. So just connecting back to what you felt, this young child, that was all he felt. My brother's not here anymore.
When my daughter was 7 is when I lost my son, and I was grieving one day really bad, and she said, "Mom, are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, sweetie, I'm sorry. I'm just grieving over Bobby." And she says, "Why? He's right there." And she like points up to the ceiling in the corner, and I'm looking, and of course I didn't see anything. And, so that just blew my mind. It's almost as if she could see him.
Yeah, little kids. I've witnessed it myself with when my father passed away, my nephew, who was only 6 months old, I think at the time he passed, and he was there when it happened. He had come to my house, and he was probably about a little bit under 2 at the time. And it was just me, him, and my animals in the house. And we were reading a story on the couch one day, and he got up from the couch and he walked over to the dining room, and there was nobody else there. And he lifted up his arms to something that I did not see, like, pick me up. And I just knew it was my dad. I knew it. I knew my dad was there, and you can feel it. So, Kurt, I know you're really quiet. Is there anything that is resonating in you with this conversation?
Yeah, there's a lot. But as you know, all my friends think I'm this big tough guy. But when I get into conversations like this, I cry like a baby. So I really try to not do that. And so listening to all of you and the beautiful and positive message that you have, it does resonate with me. I think I think that the point that you all make is that there are people out there because you feel things, you see things, you can feel the presence of the loss of the ones that you love that you've lost. And it made me think about this. The whole concept of loving yourself that I teach is that the most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. And that relationship with yourself affects every other relationship you have. Now, as a gay man who didn't come out for 40 years, I'll say the first quarter of my life, so let's say first third of my life, I denied who I was. Do you know that when I was in the closet, I didn't see one gay person, not one. I couldn't, in fact, there were times where I honestly believed I was the only gay person on the earth, other than I heard Elton John was gay. But other than that, I thought I was it. When we deny a part of ourselves, and we're not going to see what's there in front of our eyes. And when I came out of the closet, I saw gay people everywhere. And it was funny because I remember coming out as gay, and I would thought, oh, there's only a few of us. We're very special. And then one day I realized, no, we're not. We're everywhere. We're just like everybody else. When my mother passed away, there's a couple things that happened. One was I was a bouncer at the time. I was a young guy, and I was a bouncer at a bar. And one of the bartenders and myself, we met these 2 girls. We went back to their house, and something I'd done 100 times before. And being there, all of a sudden, I was possessed to go, you need to get home. I had no idea why. I was enjoying myself. I was having a good time, but it's just like, you need to go home. And so I told my friend, I go, I'm going to go home. And he's like, what? Because I'd never done that before. And he goes, yeah. I go, I don't know. I don't feel right. I just have to go home. And he's like, all right. So I went home, and now you got to remember, it's like 4 a.m. As I get home, I see my mother and my brother. And I said, what are you guys doing? They go, well, we're going up to see your sister, because my sister had just had a baby up in Virginia, and they were going to drive up there so my mother could see her new grandson. So I saw my mother. I told her I loved her and gave her a kiss. And that was the last time I saw her. The next morning, I received a phone call from my brother-in-law telling me there was an accident and that she died. one of the things that I can tell you that was always so important to me, because it was important to my mother, she related a story to me when her father died and they were in an argument. And her biggest regret in life was that she never, all right, hold on a second. She never got to tell her father that she loved him before he died. And I knew how important that was, that I always got to tell my mother that I loved her before that ever happened. And the fact that I came home that night to be able to tell her I loved her before she passed away, I knew, as you said, you go, was that just a coincidence? I know for a fact it wasn't. And my ex-wife I was so mad at God. I was so mad at what I believed in. I was so mad at the universe, whoever caused this or whatever caused this. I had so much anger in my heart. I wasn't open to anything. Even my ex-wife, when my daughter was born, said, "You're not going to believe this," but she goes, "I was in there folding Kristen's clothes, her little baby clothes, and I smelled your mother. She was in this room." I had no experience of it because I was too angry, because just like when I was in the closet being gay, I had shut that out, shut all that off, and I wasn't open to anything except anger at the time. So when people, and I'm not going to say that, it's the case for everyone, but I think that if you don't allow yourself to believe, if you're angry, you're not going to receive love. You can't receive. That's why I talk about loving yourself. If you don't love yourself, it's hard for you to accept love from other people. You don't believe it. You don't trust it because you don't trust yourself. And so I didn't mean to go on, but that's what I got from you guys. And Stephanie, let me tell you, your book, Suicide Through a Mother's Eyes, I can assure you that will help a lot of people. I had a dear friend who took his life 3 years ago this May. He was a young guy, and him and I were just great friends. And his mother contacted me from over in England because she never knew any of his friends, and so I was able to show her a side of him that she didn't know about, and she was so grateful. But I know she's still in so much pain. So to have something like that out there to help her, I'm going to definitely let her know about your book. So it's a wonderful work.
Thank you so much. And that was my only hope for writing the book. When I lost my son, I felt so alone. I felt like no one could understand, this pain and this confusion and even the guilt, that we feel through losing someone to suicide. And, that it was, like I said, I keep saying, the book was a very hard thing to do, but it wasn't about that. It was about my message and that it could help ease the pain of someone else going through it. And just to say one more thing about the signs, the crazy thing is I found my son. And right before I found him, we lived in a house that was adjacent to each other. So his apartment was attached to my house. And as I walked out my back door, going to his back door, because I felt something wasn't right, I got this vision in my head, like literally how he was laying and everything, that he was gone, on my way over before I opened his door. And then when I opened his door and I seen him, I was telling myself, no, that can't be right. I was denying it. But it definitely was like a sign that I got right before I seen him. Sometimes I question that and I wonder, was that to ease my pain or to make me not go into so much shock, which I did anyways. But, it's just like you said, we wonder. That can't just have popped into my head for no reason. There was a reason that it was warning me, or, just whatever that sign was. It definitely came to me right before I found my son.
Wow. Okay, I definitely want to ask something. This is definitely right now getting me a little bit emotional because it's like, and it's interesting that we all have very common experiences. Because actually, when my grandmother had passed away, like I said, I was away. I was in New Orleans visiting my best friend and, celebrating. It was his birthday, actually. It was September 29th. It was my best friend's birthday, and it was actually my uncle's birthday as well. And my grandmother was on my mind. You know, she was in and out of the hospital, minor things, asthma and stuff like that. And I haven't talked to her for like probably like a day. And so she was just strongly on my mind. I was like, oh, you know, I want to get my grandmother a gift. So I drove down to Bourbon Street because, like I said, my grandmother's a very spiritual woman. I decided to go to one of the spiritual stores, and there was this one statue that I saw. There's one hand-painted statue of a priestess, which reminded me of my grandmother, because that's how I saw my grandmother. It's this priestess, this beautiful woman. And I was like, I'm going to go get that, go and buy that, you know, and get that as a gift and bring it back and give it to her. And so I go to Bourbon Street, I go to the store, I buy the statue, this Brazilian statue, hand-painted statue. And as soon as I get back to the car, I borrowed my friend's car, I got a call, and it was my mom. And I get to her voice was different, you know, and it's like I knew before she even said anything. I knew, you know, and she said my grandmother, you know, had passed, and I just took a moment, and you know, I broke down right there in the car and took a moment to just, you know, cry and let it out. But it's like, I knew. And like you said, that's not a coincidence that she was on my mind at that time, exact time that I was going to buy that statue for her. And that's the time when she made her transition. You know, there's the timing and everything, you know? So I believe, like you said, Stephanie, I think spirit has a way of preparing us, definitely preparing us in a certain way where it's just not a complete surprise. If you're open to some extent, or you're aware, there are signs and messages even before that prepare us for us to deal with that.
Yes. Most definitely.
It really does. And it brings up the same for me with my grandmother and my real first experience of acknowledging, you know, premonition dreams and other things that, you know, would follow on from that. And my grandmother was the same. She was my nana, and she was my one person in the family I felt normal around, that I wasn't different, that I did come from this family. Apart from that, I sort of felt I was adopted or from somewhere else. And she felt that way. And I was 8 years old, and I remember sort of going to bed and thinking of my nana. And that night, in this, what was not really a dream, but was a dream, a raven came to me. Now, I'm from New Zealand. We don't have raven birds there. I'd never heard of one. But the bird came to me, and I knew it was a raven. And it was my nana. And the raven had said that, you know, look, I've died and I've passed on. And that was my dream. And I woke up and, you know, thought that was a bit strange, very, very vivid. And I walked into my kitchen where my mum and my dad were, and they didn't look very happy. And they went to say something to me, you know, something's happened. And I'm like, I know. They're like, what do you mean? And I was like, Nana's passed away. And then the thing that kind of deterred me away from that was that they were like, well, she must have heard. She must have heard us talking. There's no way she could have known this. So I kind of got deterred away from that natural instinct that I knew. But something inside of me was always, there's something about this. My nana came to me to tell me goodbye herself before she left. And that was one of the strongest things that I had. And I think what's quite special today is we're all talking about love, but a lot of our experience in love and sign is actually with passing. And I think I know, you know, Stephanie and Dawn and I have talked about it a lot, is that this is something that's not normalized in our society. People are very afraid of that. But, you know, with death there is this love within there, and we can experience, even through the pain, there is the beauty, there is that connection of love. It never goes away. It's always fueled, and we can always see the signs that the universe are going to put out there for us when we need it from that person. And I feel so connected to you all today based on that, such similar, you know, totally different experience, but so similar at the heart and the core of them all. That's really special. So thank you guys for sharing.
Katie, thank you for that. Oh, go ahead, Kate. I
want to take up all the time, but, you know, also to my grandmother, she was my mother. In my eyes, she was the one person, you know, like we said, that was very connected. And I lost her at 17 years old. My son was born, and I lost her a month later after my son was born. And I really thought my life was over. I didn't know. I literally fell out on the floor once again, like, how am I going to do this? And I'd say within 2 to 3 days of her passing, now taking you back for a minute, when I was little and I was sick, she would hold us up in a rocking chair and rub my arm just like this, so soothing and calm. And about 2 or 3 days after I lost her, I was just oblivious to what I'm going to do with life. And I had a dream. I had a dream that I was grown. You know, I could see my whole full grown body sitting in her lap in that rocking chair. And she was rubbing my arm just like this. And she told me, honey, everything's going to be okay. And Granny's always going to be with you. And, you know, again, people may think that's crazy, but I got such a comfort. And then I was able to move on with my life and to go on with my life. But I literally had that dream. It was so real. It was so real.
I'm so glad you said that. Because, you know, doing this podcast, we've been talking about doing this for years in some way, shape, or form. And right before, like, or right after we did the first episode, I had this very, very, very vivid dream. And I said that night before I went to bed, I said, I'm going to remember my dream tonight. And I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was sobbing because my dad passed away in 2000. And I've dreamt of him twice. This was only the second time. And it's right while this is all, you know, transpiring and we're getting this going. And in my dream, I remember hugging him, and I woke up hugging my dad. And I feel like when I woke up, I know I had just hugged my dad. And it had been like so long since I'd hugged him, and I'll cry. But the beauty in that is when I was talking to Gail is the amazing woman who helps us put this all together behind the scenes. And one day we're going to get her on here to talk with us because she's amazing. But I told her that story about my dad coming to me in that dream, and it only being the second time I dreamt about him in 22 years. And she said, no way. She goes, I just dreamt about my mom the other night who passed away in 2010. And this is only the third time she had dreamt about her. So I know that they're out there. I know they're part of this. I know they're watching us, and they're proud, and they're with us. And I felt it. So one of the things I wanted to ask Reggie, since this is the work that you do and you've been doing it for a while, I know we all have the ability to connect because we're all connected, but we don't always see the signs. We don't recognize them, or we're just like, you know, just plowing through life, just missing all of these magical things. What would you suggest to somebody to start noticing those signs? Like how would you help them start being more open to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Kurt hit on it earlier when he talked about love and recognizing love within yourself. Because I feel like it really begins there, is that you have to recognize, how can you expect to receive something outside of yourself if you're not able to give it to yourself or recognize it within you, you know? And so I feel like it begins with you finding that place first. Perfect example, personally for me, when my grandmother passed away, like I said, it really hit very close. It really hit home. And, you know, my grandmother, of course, growing up in a spiritual family, this gift runs in the family, totally believe in the afterlife. So that was never an issue of that belief, whether that existed or not. I grew up that way. It's ingrained in me. You know, that's just part of my reality. And she would always say, you know, I'm going to be there. You know, I'm going to be around. I'm going to be visiting you guys, watching over you guys, you know, and joking around it. And you know, people think, oh, well, you're a psychic medium. She's going to come, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, she's going to come to me the next day, you know, like I know Granny's going to be right there. You know, she's going to come to me in my dreams. I had nothing. I think that one experience right when she had passed, but after that, I mean, I didn't feel anything. There was nothing, no dreams. I didn't feel, even though I knew she was around, there was nothing there. It was like a sign. Like I felt like I was getting any signs. And I thought there was something wrong with me, you know, because I'm like, I'm able to connect with everybody else's loved ones. How come I'm not, you know, receiving any messages? And what I realized is there was a block that I had. There was something that I didn't realize unconsciously, and that I had some guilt because I wasn't there, you know, when she had passed away. And I didn't really realize until I had to just do some soul searching. I had to really kind of go inside and say, what's holding me back? Because I know she's around, I know she's around, but why am I not receiving any signs? And it was because I was closed off to a certain extent. I had that guilt there's something I had to forgive in myself to realize that it happened the way it was supposed to happen. Because I think if I was there when she had transitioned, it would have been a lot more worse for me, actually. So everything happened just the way that it needed to happen. Like, I needed to be away, and I needed those 1 or 2 days to process things before I came back. Because I think me being sensitive in the way that I am, for me to be in the midst of it at the moment that it happened, I feel like it would have really brought me down.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I realized the bigger picture is like everything happened, and I realized I need to forgive myself, because that was the way it was supposed to happen. And when I did that, and I let go of some of that guilt that I really didn't realize I was holding, all of a sudden I felt her presence. I felt her, and there was different signs that she would give me that she was around, through other people. The dreams, I started getting the dreams, she would come to me, and like Stephanie mentioned, the hugging. I had that experience. I dreamed of her, and it was real. It wasn't just a dream. It was real. I saw her smile. She was glowing. I felt her big hug. I mean, I could feel everything. Even when I woke up, like you said, Dawn, I woke up even with the feeling as if she was still there, and I could still feel the love, and I could still feel her hugging me. So the first thing I would say is be open. I think spirit is always there. We always have that connection, but I think our minds and our stuff can kind of distance us. It's about, like you said, how open that we are. So if you're grieving, if you're angry, like Kurt said, being angry, anything other than love, it's going to block you. Once you start to open yourself and allow yourself to be open to love, that's the connection. That's the key, because that's what spirit is. So once you start to release the guilt, once you start to release the anger, whatever emotions and things that you're going through, that is what opens the doorway to them connecting with us. We have to clear our stuff. We have to get out of it. We have to process. We have to grieve. And that's a very important thing. People don't allow themselves to grieve. If you don't allow yourself to grieve, there's no way that they can really get to us very clearly. It's like static, it's like having a cloud around us, so we have to take that first step. And when we take the first step, spirit will take the rest, and meet us halfway. And that's how it works as a medium. And that's why we use the word medium, because we're meeting each other halfway. That's the connection. And that connection is love. Our love for them and their love for us is what makes us meet.
Yes. And maybe even asking for a sign. We can ask for a sign, and we can ask for a specific sign, and you'll be amazed. You can say, a yellow butterfly. Or, me and Dawn had this experience. I'm going to let her tell that story. Dawn, tell about the key.
Oh, I was going to make you tell the story.
You tell it. It was your thoughts.
Yeah, it's a really good story. And so Stephanie and I were going to a friend's wedding in Arkansas, and I happened to be reading Laura Lynn Jackson's book called Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe. And one of the chapters said, when you're asking for a sign from a loved one, or, an angel, or whoever you're asking the sign from, she said, be very specific. Don't just say a butterfly, because when you see a butterfly, you'll say, well, there are tons of butterflies. So you'll question all of the signs. So make it something very unusual, so that if you see it, it's a sign. So I'm like, okay, Dad, I'm on the airplane. Like, okay, Dad, what sign? And in my head, I got this picture of one of those old fashioned gold library keys. And I drew a very stupid drawing of it in the book. And, then I get to Arkansas, Stephanie picks me up. We're on a road trip. We're having fun. And I kind of forgot about the signs. Well, the next day, Stephanie was taking a shower. We're sharing a hotel room. She was in the shower. I look on her bed, and her keys were laying there. And on her keychain, there is a key that looks exactly like the key I drew in my book, a better representation because my drawing was terrible. But I was like, oh my God, Stephanie, you're not going to believe this. And I told her the story about the I was reading, and I showed her the picture. And then my friend who was getting married called us, and we told her the story because it just happened. And she goes, oh, that wouldn't surprise me at all. She said, did I ever tell you I had a website called the Golden Keys? And then she shows us the website, and there are those golden keys all over the website. And I just thought, oh, wow. Okay. Thank you, Dad. I get it. So now anytime I see one of those keys, I know it's my dad.
Yes.
One of the things, if I may, I'd like to add on to what Reggie was saying. He's absolutely right about this. And one of the things that you might be able to help people with, if they're saying, how can you receive, these signs? Why am I not receiving these signs? I would say you need to ask yourself, what is love? Love is honest. Love is true. Love is love. You can't be angry at the world and say that you love yourself. I go, it's very hard to be mad at the world and say you love yourself. And the same is reversed. It's, once you love yourself, it's hard to be angry at the world. You just don't find that. They don't go hand in hand. So if you're being honest, if you're in forgiveness, that's what I want to touch on with Reggie. And he talks about, the guilt. Love is not guilty. Love is forgiveness. And so when you ask yourself, what is love? It's forgiveness, it's honesty, it's trustworthiness, it's all these positive things. And if you're not in that mindset, if you don't have that yourself, you're not going to see the signs. You can ask for all the signs that you want. Your eyes will be closed to it. And so, I think Reggie hits right on it. You've got to get rid of the anger. You have to get rid of the guilt. And, and we all feel that way. Even with my friend over in England, I felt guilty because he would always call me whenever he'd get in desperate times. He would call me and I would help him through this. And yet, he knew that, because of my schedule, I couldn't always take the call. And one day he called me and I thought, oh, it'll be okay. He'll call me back. And that was the day he didn't. And so I had guilt there thinking, if I had just picked up the phone. The truth is that he'd been dealing with this his whole life, and, and it was going to happen at some point or another. And so, but it's still, you feel guilt for it because you feel like you could have, prolonged this a little bit so that it would happen. But the guilt, the anger, all of that has to be, you have to get rid of it. You have to get rid of it to love yourself, and you have to get rid of it in order to be able to accept that love that's out there, whether it's in this life or from the afterlife,
Yes. And forgiveness is very important. Very important. First, we start with ourselves, and then, like I said, when my son passed away, I went through all emotions in one. And, first it was shock and denial, and then it was anger. I was literally angry. How could you do this? Why would you do this? A little bit later on, after healing a little bit more and wrapping my head around what just happened, I literally had to forgive him, for that. And then I had to forgive myself because I carried around a lot of guilt. And like you said, anger, what I could have, should have, would have done, all of that. And until I could literally stop and say, you know what, he had a mental illness. I'm going to forgive him. And then I'm going to forgive myself as well.
So powerful. And I think those ones I went through all of those too. And in a different way, because obviously a different situation of losing our children, and the guilt is phenomenal. It eats at us. And that forgiveness, we literally, without forgiving ourselves, we trap ourselves within a jail, in a prison, for everything else that's good. And it's, in general in life, not just in these circumstances, when we don't forgive ourselves or somebody else for something that has happened, we entrap ourselves and we can't move on. And like Kurt was saying, it's like not the signs will be there, it's all happening, but we don't get to experience it because we're blocking ourselves from that. And I had that same experience with Jackson when he passed away. My guilt of I could have, I should have, all those things kept coming up. But when I finally forgave myself, I was in a wake sleep state, and he had his hand on my face. I just felt him 100% because he'd always do it. He'd just put his hand on my face. And I remember just all of a sudden tears streaming down my face, like, and connecting that I'd let go of my guilt that I was holding, and my son could then be there for me. And I have chills thinking about it. And it is enormous. We hold ourselves back in ways that we don't realize. And the guilt and the not forgiving are two huge ones of entrapping us from love and accepting and giving and all the beautiful, wonderful things that come from that. And then the world we live in is really a much better place.
Yeah. And even like self-love, like Kurt was talking about, until we love ourselves completely and our cup is overflowing, then we can't give that love away to anyone else. If we can't give it to ourselves, we can't give it, and we can't even really receive it from anyone else. Right. Again, I was in toxic relationships, and, long story short, at 50 years old, it took me to learn to love myself. Because until I learned to love myself, then no one else could fully love me either. So it's very difficult.
Stephanie and Katie both make a great point here, is that, it's so much easier for us to forgive others before we forgive ourselves. In fact, one of the 7 steps that I talk about is to loving yourself is forgiveness. It's a huge one. And people don't even think, they think, oh, well, I forgive people. And I ask, do you forgive yourself? And they say, for what? And I go, think about it. I promise you that you're where you are in life because of your feelings that you have for yourself, without a doubt. And I go, and if you haven't consciously forgiven yourself already, I guarantee you there's things that you feel guilty about that you need to release and to be able to let go of. And it's funny how I said, we find it so much easier to forgive others than we do ourselves.
Yes.
What are some hints or tricks or techniques that you could share that helped you get to a place where you were able to forgive yourself?
Here's one of the things, and here's one of the things I realized a long time ago. We always have all these cliches that are out there that somebody supposedly who was wise said, and I don't think there was a lot of thought that went into it. And yet, as a whole, we accept these cliches. And one of the things is that in order to be happy, you have to, and to have peace, you have to forgive. And I don't always agree with that. We have to forgive ourselves. But there are people in my life that who were in my life that I haven't forgiven, and I'm okay with that because they didn't deserve forgiveness. Now, people may disagree with me with this, and I completely understand. Here's what I say. You cannot let that person or persons take up space in your head. If you can't get rid of them, then you need to forgive them. These people have no space. The only time that they ever come up in my head is if their names are mentioned, and then as soon as they come in, they're gone again. They have no space in my heart and my mind, and so there's no need to forgive them. And because there are no feelings attached to those people. I go, they did what they did. They are who they are, and I have no animosity towards them. I don't have anything. It's as if it's, they were someone I really don't know. And so, it's okay to do that. As long as they're not taking up space, you're okay. If they're taking up space, then there's a reason why, and you need to get to a point where you can forgive those people. Like my father, obviously he's my father. I can't just pretend he wasn't my father and just go, he doesn't take up space in my head. And so I had to get to a point where I could forgive him. And I did, and the easiest thing that I find whenever I want to forgive somebody is to understand that whatever has been done to you wasn't about you. It was about them. That's the easiest way to remember. I knew that the things that my father did to me in my childhood and my upbringing, the verbal abuse, the emotional abuse, I understood my father was doing what happened to him. It was his upbringing, and so when you realize that it's not about you and it's about him, I get it now. And I was able at that point, I remember a phrase coming into my head: hurt people hurt people. And he didn't know any better. He just did what he learned, and that's how he behaved. So when I understood it right then and there, I was able to release all my resentment and anger I had towards him. And I actually felt sorry for him because I wanted better for him at that very moment. I wanted better for him, but my father never wanted better for himself. He was one of these guys. This is how men grow up. This is how it is. And there's no need for growth, which I, obviously disagree with greatly. And so because of that, he didn't grow. And it was unfortunate because I think that's such an empty way to live life. And, but that's how I forgive people. I just realized it's not about us. It's always about them.
Right. Well, I always say, forgiveness is for us because it's like taking poison and expecting them to die, but it never means that what they did to us is okay. It's never going to say, I forgive you. It's okay for what you did. No, it's just that, like you said, Kurt, that we can come to ourselves and not put any more passion or anything into that. We can literally say it was them. It wasn't me. I forgive them for me and I'm moving on. And then I'm not going to sit there and let all those memories or the hurt, eat at you a little at a time. You just have to forgive for yourself and move on.
Yeah. And I think there's a part too that you touched on there, Kurt, about how sometimes that they take up space and that's you need to move on from that. I think we then ourselves put a lot of guilt for feeling that way. Well, I'm a bad person because I'm not giving this person love and the things that flow on from there. But again, it's kind of that cycle that's got to come back to forgiveness, to come back to love. And what Stephanie said, a lot of the time, what people did is not okay. But when you can see that it is their hurt and the only way that they've known, it's that cycle of kind of like the guilt, forgiveness, love. And that's what you replace it with. And then your heart goes out to, in your circumstance, Kurt, like your dad, and when he was a child and how he would have felt, and you can connect with his inner child yourself to feel for him and go, well, that must have been awful for you. And it doesn't make what he did to you right, but you can empathize and have compassion for that and move on. And my husband's had very similar experience with the same kind of thing. And it's, there is this cycle that we go through. And, the more we can kind of recognize these things and why these feelings are coming up and explore them. Why do I feel guilty? Why do you really agitate me? And what's going on here? You can start unraveling that again to come back to love, which is what we are born with. It's what we go with. It's what we always are. And I'm like you, Reggie, that's my belief. It's at the essence of us is love. And that's how we connect and that's how we grow and move on. And I think today's been such a special episode of I had no idea this is where it was going, and for people to tune into this, there's just so many ways you could come back to love yourself and connect to love to us themselves when people do connect to this. So yeah, again, thank you guys. I feel connected to you and to myself more, and I'm feeling that, and I know I'm going to end my go off into my day spreading even more love because I feel very full right now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, I definitely want to add something to this real quick. Going back to what you asked on about to Kurt about how do you be more aware about those things, or self-assessment. And like you say, it's about knowing thyself, going back to that saying, know thyself. And something came together. I was listening to each of you, and what I heard was open mind, open heart, and open hands. I know that's very key. I think these are all the things that we need in order to begin to receive and to feel that love, and to receive those signs for something greater beyond us. That we have to have an open mind, and to be able to receive it and not try to rationalize everything. We can't rationalize everything, we can try to, but you just can't. Spirit is something that you can't put into a box. Love is something you can't put into a box, and then you have to have an open heart, which means you have to be willing to feel, not be afraid to feel, and say, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. Vulnerability is okay. You don't need to run away from it. I think what happens majority of the time, and this is my experience with a lot of my clients and then from personal experience, when people grieve, they tend to shut down because they don't want to feel anymore, because sometimes it's just overwhelming. It's just too much. And so it creates this conflict, because we were born to feel. We have emotions for a reason. So why are we fighting these emotions, feeling? Why are we fighting back our tears, not wanting to cry? Why are we running away from dealing with whatever that issue may be that's holding us back from truly receiving that love that we need to receive? So you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to feel your emotions. And you also have to have open hands to receive, to say, okay, if I'm asking for these signs and these messages, expect to receive them and be open to receive them.
Yeah.
And I feel with all those things, there's many possibilities and ways that you can receive signs and messages and feel that love that is truly there and always around us, that connects us.
Oh, that was so good.
Yes.
That was, in order to receive love, we need to be love. And anything that is outside of love, we let go. And I think that helps us, opens us up to, again, all of the magic and miracles that surround us, and receive those, and to not look at them as random, coincidences. I used to believe in coincidences, and I do not anymore. I believe everything has some significance and some special meaning if we're open to believing that. So before we go, this has been an amazing conversation. I know we could talk all day long and for weeks on end. You are all so just so good in life. The way you see the world, it's always uplifting to be able to speak to people who see the world in this beautiful way. So thank you for being here. I'm going to let everybody end with a closing thought. My closing thought would be, I just want to send love to everyone in the world. I know right now it's very, very sad and scary what's happening, around the world, and, coming on the heels of a pandemic. And I just want to send as much love as possible, because I know that the light always wins and good always triumphs over anything negative. So I just want to tap into that. And that's what we bring to you on this podcast. So take it away, everybody, with your last thoughts.
I would just like to start it out. You know me, love is the greatest of all. Love is our greatest source of everything that could mean anything or ever be anything. So I just say, just always come back to that love. I'm sending out all my love to you all. And thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Stephanie. Anybody else? Popcorn style.
Yeah. There's just everything everyone's just said has just been so perfect to finish it off. So I just want to be there, that my heart is always here for all of you, and reach out and connect with us if you need to be receiving love yourself. We're always here to give it.
Thank you.
I would add, have faith in something greater than yourself. I think that's so key. Find something that represents something greater than yourself, that gives you hope, that makes you feel loved, whether that's religion, whether it's spirituality, whether it's just the simple things in life. Sometimes it's the simplest things in life that makes the biggest difference. Find something greater than you that gives you purpose, that drives you to want to live, that drives you to want to love, that drives you to want to be a better person. I feel that that is something that will always keep you and help you to rise above whatever that you're going through, instead of getting caught up in the drama, getting caught up in the negativity. You always have something to sort of anchor you or keep you above the water. That's my message that I feel like you find something greater than you to hold on to.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, amen to that. Kurt?
Well, build on what Reggie just said. I absolutely agree. And I would say this: you are what you focus on, whether you realize that or not. If you get focused and caught up in anger and all the bad that's going in the world, and you look at only problems, then you become part of the problem. If you look at the solutions, if you look at love, you become the solutions. That's where the solutions lie. They don't lie within looking at what the problem is. You identify the problem. Once you've done that, you find out what the source of that problem is, and then you find a solution for that. So it's not that you ignore those things. We need to be aware of those things, that they're going on, but that's not how we solve it. We identify it, and then we become the very thing that we want to happen. As they always say, become the change that you want to see, basically. So
Yes, that's our motto.
Yeah, that's our motto, Kurt.
oh
So I want to thank everybody again for tuning in to the Soulful Conversations podcast. If you want to suggest a topic for us to talk about, please feel free to send us an email. We would love to hear from you and see what topics you would like to discuss. So until next time, see you later.